everyone, and welcome to a new Plan With Me video. If you're new here, hello, my name is Charizze, and today we are setting up my October bullet journal spreads with this moon and constellations theme. We've got some new layouts to go through here, so let's begin the setup. And as always, we will start with our cover spread. We outlined a full moon with a pencil first, and you can use any round stencil or object that you can trace. I felt doing something that has a balance of painting and doodles in this theme. I think this would be an easy theme to recreate if you would like to have a similar setup. I decided to use watercolors. This is the Van Gogh watercolors from Royal Talents. And since I was able to film this video a lot quicker than my previous Plan With Me videos, I thought this is a great time to show you my color mixes for the paintings. I wanted to do a pink moon, so we're mixing some pink shades. I will flash the names of the colors on the screen too for your reference. It takes some time to find the colors that I want. I had tested these in my separate moon painting practice, so now I already know what colors to pick up for this part of the tutorial. Alright, we have our 4 colors here, so let's start by painting the base with our lightest color on our palette. Then the next shade for the first layer of the moon's Maria, or the large dark areas on the surface. And then we're just gonna add the darker colors on top for the shading, or making these areas even darker. You can look up for some references of the moon to see the placements of these areas, but of course, the painting doesn't have to be perfect. The motion I used to paint this is just by dabbing the tip of my brush to create texture. I also went back to the lighter areas and added some subtle textures using the second shade. On the bottom part of the moon, there is a little hole-like shape and strokes of crater rays around it. I used an almost dry white watercolor to add details on the painting, but you can also use white gel pen, paint pen, or gouache to add highlights. The next element we are painting are some clouds, but first let's mix the color that we're gonna use to paint them. I took yellow, white, and a bit of gray to create an ivory white color. We're not painting realistic clouds here, but just the basic shapes, and then I just added more gray to the paint later on and applied it on the bottom of the clouds for the shadows, as well as defining some of the top parts. For the main character in this cover, I wanted to draw a swing hanging on the moon and a silhouette of a girl on the center. I'm using the black Tombow Fidenosuke, so it would be easier and quicker to shade everything with its brush. Then I also wanted to add some gold effects, so I just took a gold watercolor and painted on a bunch of dots around. I manually painted them instead of sprinkling or gently tapping the belly of the brush so that they won't be scattered all over the page. After that, we are using the alphabet stamps for the October title underneath the illustration. Now you can leave the cover design like this, but I had an idea to turn it into a cutout design, so the next step I'm showing you is painting a full spread background on a separate watercolor paper. This is a 300 GSM watercolor paper from Canson. I taped all the sides down with washi tape so it stays in place and doesn't move around. We're gonna be using a wet on wet technique to create a fluid and soft spontaneous effects. So we're just starting by laying down clean water on the whole surface. You want to use a bigger brush. I'm using a large flat brush so I can work on it faster. And then we are adding the paint while the paper is still wet. On this wet on wet technique, I am particularly using a drop-in watercolor technique where I work in one area while adding the colors one after the other. This doesn't need to be perfect as well. I just did lots of different strokes and using the tip of my brush to drop in dots and press down to make lines or swirls and running the brush around the edge of the wet area. I mixed a significant amount of paint I want to use on each layer so I can continuously keep adding them and I won't run out at some point. The colors are quite similar to the ones I used for the moon painting, but I just added a touch of red. Before adding another layer, just make sure that the existing layer has dried so it doesn't disturb the paint, otherwise it will create a streaky effect. I wanted to do a pink nebula or galaxy background, so this is a great wet on wet technique for adding depth and dimension to this watercolor painting. You can also see me adding a deeper color here and there. Once the painting is completely dry, it's time to remove the washi tapes, and I'm cutting this into half so we can attach it on the pages later. But for now, I wanted to cut this page out as well, like I said earlier. I'm using this pen style cutter to trace the shape of the moon and how I wanted this page to look like. Fast forward, I removed the section I had cut. I also made a similar arch shape on the page next to it. I needed to get closer while working on it, so my head was blocking the camera and I didn't include the footage, but I hope you got the idea. Now we're finally attaching the painting on the spread. I cut them in a way that completely cover the entire page. I also rounded the corners with a paper puncher. I will be providing the link of the supplies I'm using here on the description box in case you wanted to check them out. On top of the painting is where I'm adding various constellations. I wanted to use my white Uniposca paint pen at first, however it was not opaque enough, so I took a white gouache instead. Some of these are zodiac constellations, but for the rest of the spaces, I just randomly grouped the stars. Flipping back the cover page, the painting with hand-drawn constellations are nicely seen through, like how I wanted to achieve. This part does not really have any function to the spread other than the visuals, but I like how it looks as part of the monthly welcoming page. But on the other side, I am adding a little quote that says, "It is written in the stars." I stamped some of the words and I decided to write the words written in stars with a brush pen. Then I painted the same constellations around the quote and just changed the placements a little bit. And now we are finally done with this part of the cover spread. Though the moon in the background has the same tones, I think the cutout idea helped to somehow separate it. And yes, literally. But let's proceed to the other side where we are going to create my October calendar. I started by drawing a round shape using a beige color brush pen at the back of the moon. I also did the same thing on the next page, so we're going to see the same shape when we flip it over. I am making a simple calendar layout here, and as always, I get confused with the amount of rows in my calendars, but luckily I got it right. I also added a bit of color to the horizontal lines with a highlighter that has a nice muted purple color. After that, I moved on to the empty back side, and I will use this to write down my goals and focus for the month. But that's finally it for this cutout cover, monthly calendar, and goals and focus spreads. It is quite a concept, but it's nice to try out something new this time. And now let's create some wellness trackers. Again, I'm using the alphabet stamps for the titles, and from here I will also start using some stickers and washi tapes for the decoration. I also wanted to do another moon painting and a silhouette of a girl swinging. I am painting the moon with the same process, but there were some details that I surely missed when I looked at the reference again, like the smaller rays apart from the one on the bottom. But I didn't bother to add those in the first painting anymore. Anyway, I also painted several clouds here and there, and then the swinging silhouette with the black brush pen. It's been a while since I included a mood tracker in my monthly bullet journal setups, and I thought it would be a great time to make one for this theme. So the upper part of this whole spread will be for my mood tracker. I drew different constellations using a fine liner and made sure that the stars are in total of 31. I will be coloring each mood with this set of cream color highlighters. I realized the first and last color were almost the same, but the last one is a little bit darker up close. And then I just added gold dots on the white spaces to complete this look. On the bottom will be for my habit trackers. I used the highlighters again to create each tracker. At first, I tried to make them straight using a ruler, but I just struggled with it, so I put it aside and free-handed them. I thought of adding lines, but in the end it looked better without it, so I just left it like that. I stamped the title on the right hand side this time, and I also added the same round sticker and grid washi tape. I must say I missed creating a layout like this, but I'm happy with how this tracker spread turned out and I'm excited to fill them in. The next spread we're creating is something new as well, and I like to entitle it as Fun Things to Do This October, where I write down some fun activities or ways to enjoy the month. One of them is definitely binge watching some shows, and I will be creating a watch list. We don't have fall season in our country, but I still wanted to do some fall-inspired activities or create an environment like it, because why not? I'm gonna be using washi tapes from Notebook Therapy. I got a collection called Constellations from them, and I'm glad to have the chance to make use of them in this setup. The first design I used here is a pet tape, and it has blobs of dusty pink color with rose gold foiled zodiac constellations. The second tape I used has a black background with soft clouds and cosmic designs. I cut the part that has the faces of the moon, and this is going to be on the screen of a phone drawing. It is a little section where I will write my songs of the month later. I drew it with a pen first, and this time I tried using the highlighters to color it, but later on I went back to watercolors to paint the clouds. I don't know, sometimes I'm confusing myself too. And then I also added gold sparkles around. The next page is my content list. I'm dividing this page into 3 main sections. I have boxes for YouTube, Instagram, and tasks. I freehanded the boxes too with double borders. Then I used this slim washi tape from Notebook Therapy's Constellation set to decorate the titles. I included a small section on the middle to track the growth of my social media accounts, and then further decorated the spread with washi tapes. Let's move on to this small empty space here, and we're going to create another moon and silhouette illustration. This one is going to be an easier approach, and instead of painting a full moon, we are doing a crescent moon with someone sitting on it. So we are using the same palette for the moon, and what we're doing is we are just layering the colors on the edges and then intensifying the shadows more with the darker color. I'm using tapping motions to create texture, and then we're painting two of the same clouds we have painted in this setup on the upper left of the moon. And of course, we have the silhouette of a girl seated on the moon with her palms open facing upwards. For the final touches, we're also adding floating gold sparkles above her hand for a bit more magical look. The layout and design are kind of all over the place, but that's finally it for this spread, and next we are setting up the weekly spreads for October. As always, I wanted to use Dutch doors again for the layout. I started cutting the top and bottom of the spreads. I wanted the sides and bottom to have a solid color, so I printed out a dusty rose color. I cut them in 4 dot spaces wide and just glue them accordingly. Then on top, I used the black washi tape with clouds and constellations. We are not quite done yet with the cutting process here because I am also making tabs for each spread. The designs on this washi tape has the perfect length for this purpose, so I decorated them with it. So for the first weekly spread of the month, I stamped week 40 and added a mini calendar beside it, where I messed up with the numbers as usual, but we will fix that with a white pen. And then I also made a grid background using the gray fine tip of the Zebra mild liner pen that we used earlier for a little notes section. We have one more unused washi tape in the whole Constellation set, and these are arch-shaped stickers with rose gold details as well. There are 2 colors, so I alternated them on each of the daily boxes. I just wrote the days and the dates below the stickers, and lastly are drawing the boxes themselves. And that finally finishes up this October bullet journal setup. It was an easier one to create, at least for me, but I like the black and pink color combinations and that I still got to squeeze in some paintings as well as washi tapes and stickers that are just waiting to be used. I hope you got some ideas from this setup. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more Plan With Me videos in the future. And that's it for now. Have an amazing month of October, and I will see you on my next one. Bye everyone.